This conference will now be recorded.
Hello students, I'm Dr. Divya from TeenEinstein. So in 14th chapter ecosystem part 5, today we are going to learn about ecological succession. So ecological succession, what is that? Let's learn what do you mean by ecological succession, or you know that biotic community, it is seldom static, right? So it's composition, that composition of this biotic community that changes. How? Due to that interaction between the components like biotic components and abiotic components, due to that interaction, that composition changes. So that change that is in one order, and it is there is a sequence for that change. So based on physical conditions, if physical conditions are changing, based on that sequential changes will happen. So physical environment component along with the biotic components, or the interaction between biotic and abiotic components, that makes the changes in the biotic community, right? Changes in biotic community. So this changes, that's what we are saying, this changes, that is sequential and parallel with the changes in physical environment. So that is parallel to the physical environmental changes. Along with those physical environmental changes, this sequential changes also happens. So these changes that will reach to an equilibrium. Okay, with the environmental conditions that will interact, that conditions along with the conditions that also will interact, the abiotic and biotic components will interact, and as a result of this interaction there will be a sequential change which is parallel to the physical environment. So that changes finally that will reach to this will lead to the formation, or it will make a community. Okay, in that community that equilibrium will be there, and that community is called as climax community. Like how we are saying it is the climax scene or climax of that movie. That means depending upon all situation they'll make a climax scene, right? That will be the maximum from that story which we are getting. That is a maximum, or that is the there in climax in maximum expression will get. Same like that in environmental conditions or in ecological succession or in ecosystem, you can see a climax community. That community will fight with all the conditions or all the sequential changes whichever is happening after that fight. That will express there will be an equilibrium, or equilibrium condition will come, which is the result of a fight between the abiotic and biotic components, and after that a stable condition will form with maximum equilibrium. That is called as climax community. Okay, so this climax community, this gradual and fairly predictable changes in the species composition of a given area, that is called as ecological succession. So what is ecological succession? Gradual and fairly predictable changes in the species composition of a given area. See, we can predict the species composition of a given area. See, we can say that after fight, after all these interactions, which one will exist and what will be the form of that existence, or that existing communities form, or what and all changes are there in that community, that we can predict, because as a result of gradual or sequential changes which is parallel to the environmental, physical environmental condition, that we can predict that change, or up to which percentage changes are there in that community. So that species composition of a given area, that we can predict. So that is called as ecological succession. So during that succession, species some species, like, see, all after all these fight, all species can't exist there. Okay, someone will go away, someone will like some species will be completely wiped off from that area, because that can't adjust with the existing conditions. So due to that and all, some may migrate to some other area. So such changes will happen. So during succession, some species colonize an area and their population become more numerous, whereas population of other species decline and even disappear. Okay, here we can say that the survival of the fittest. That means during that succession period, some particular species that will colonize an area, that some particular species that will be having, or that will be having the ability to survive in that condition. So that community will exist, and that population that will become more numerous, that their number will increase, or that population will become larger. But at the same time, the other population which cannot compete with this particular species, their number, or that species, their number will decline, or sometimes they may even disappear. Okay, because they, or those particular species which is reducing in their number, they may not be able to cope up with these situations. So they may disappear. Okay, that situation also may come. So that here we have learned about climax community, then ecological succession. Then next is types of successional communities. So during this succession, it's a gradual change, we said, right? It's a gradual and sequential change which is parallel to the physical environmental conditions. So during that period of succession, you can see different types of communities. Okay, which are those different types of communities? First one is pioneer community. What is pioneer community? In a bare area, one community which is developing first, that is termed as pioneer community. Okay, as the word indicates, from the word itself it's clear, pioneer means a starting. In a bare area, that is the starting community. Okay, that is called as pioneer community. So the first biotic community which develops in a bare area, that is called as pioneer community. For example, we can say on rock you can see lichens. These are example for pioneer community, because that is a bare rock, nothing will be there. On that, lichens will start growing. Then in a pond, in a clean pond, when phytoplanktons and zooplanktons they are starting, means that is a pioneer community. That is a starting community in that ecosystem. Okay, so pioneer community means the starting community in a bare area. The next is transitional community or seral community. Transitional community or seral community. What do you mean by that? Transitional community. First, now in that area, in an ecosystem, you can see a pioneer community. Pioneer community is already there. Like here on rock, lichens are there. Then after that, it is followed by a species or a series of communities. Okay, another series of community which is followed or which is following that pioneer community, that is called as transitional community or serial community. The pioneer community is followed by specific communities, that also in an orderly sequence. Okay, that series of plant communities, they are called as serial community. Like for example, we can say first bryophytes, and after that it is followed by some herbs or shrubs and all. These and all. Then in pond, in aquatic ecosystem, you can see some floating plants and all. So these and all we can consider as transitional community. In that stage of transition, okay, we said three types of communities are there. Pioneer community is there, transitional community is there, then climax community. Climax community, again from the same word you can get, it is in the climax stage. Okay, so pioneer community is the starting one. Transitional community means from that pioneer stage, again some other communities are coming in a sequential way or in an order, special order, special sequence. That communities which is in between the pioneer community and climax community, which and all getting added to that, that is called as transitional community or serial community. In that stage of transition, which and all communities are there, that is called as transitional or serial community. So the pioneer community is followed by a specific orderly sequence of series of plant communities. That communities, series of plant communities, that is called as serial community or transitional community. Example, we can say bryophytes, herbs, shrubs and all. Then next we need to say about climax community. In a biotic succession, the last community. Okay, climax community means that is the last community. Climax community is the last community. Means after this pioneer community and transitional community, you can see climax community. That is the last community in a biotic succession. Last community. Then what we can say about it? This is the stable, because we have already told like that will get adjusted with the, or it is a climax community, means it is in maximum after fighting with all these environmental conditions, it became stable. So last community, and it is almost stable. That shows almost stable nature, and this can adjust, or that can go with an equilibrium. This will be in an equilibrium with the surroundings, right? So that is the last community, and that is in a stable mode, and that will be in an equilibrium with the environment. So that is called as climax community. Like established forest and all, you can say forest that is established already through a sequence of development that formed a that that is appearing in an established form. So that is called as climax community. Okay, so the entire sequence of communities that successively change in a given area, that is called as SARE. Okay, what do you mean by that? This is MCQ, this one, entire series of community, that means a pioneer community plus transitional community plus climax community. So that entire series of communities which are successively changing in a given area. First pioneer community will appear, then transitional community will appear, then climax community will come, right? So this successive communities which is changing in a given area, that is called as SARE. Okay, so the individual transitional communities, they are called as seral stages or seral communities. That individual stages, each stage of that changing community, that is called as seral stages or seral communities. So in the successive seral stages, there is a change in the diversity of species of organism. There is a change in the diversity of species of organism, increase in the number of species and organism, as well as increase in the total biomass. Got it? So in each stage of that seral community or the transitional communities, that is called as seral communities or seral stages. So in each successive change, the diversity, that organisms diversity will change. Different types of organism will be there in each stage, and that increases number of species. Number of species will increase, and number of organisms also changes, and there is an increase in the total biomass. Think about this one, whichever I said here, bryophytes. First, lichens on rock, right? That is appearing as a pioneer community. Then you can see bryophytes, herbs, shrubs and all. When it is moving to the climax community, you can see established forest, right? In forest, you think about the biomass in this stage. Lichens, biomass is less. When it is moving to bryophytes, herbs, shrubs and all, slightly it is, this biomass is increasing, right? When it is reaching in the climax community, that means forest, think about the biomass, it is in the highest level. Okay, so the total biomass increases, number of organism increases, species, number of species increases, species diversity increases. Got it? So you can see different types of successional communities: pioneer community, transitional community or serial community, then climax community. So these are the different communities you can see during ecological succession. Then next is types of succession. So succession, where you can see succession, where it will start, that process in an area where no living organisms are there. Wherever there is no living organism, in a bare area, the succession will start, right? So depending upon the habitat nature. So where it is getting started, depending upon the habitat, there are two types of succession. Got it? One is xeroser or xerarch succession. Succession. And next is hydroser or hydrarch succession. These are two types of succession based on the habitat or based on the nature, right? Xeroser or xerarch succession, that means this word, have you heard about this? Xerophytes. We know that. What is that? Means dry areas. Xerophytes means plants which are present in the dry areas, right? Hydrosis, hydro, that means it is related to water. So you can write very easily. Xerarch succession means that is taking place in dry area like rock, sand, and in saline conditions and all. Okay, in dry areas. So here habitat, that habitat is dry area. Next, in hydrarch succession or hydroser, that means this water, hydro means it is related to water. So this in this habitat is aquatic habitat. Got it? So based on the habitat, there are two types, xerarch succession and hydrarch succession. Xerarch means in dry area, where place like sand, rock and all. Hydrarch means aquatic habitat. Then, so that classification, that is based on the habitat. Next, depending upon the type of nudity of the area. First, this classification, xerarch and hydrarch succession, that is based on the habitat, nature of habitat. Next, depending upon the nudity of the area, there are two types. Which are they? Primary succession and secondary succession. Based on the nudity of the area. So first one is based on habitat. Second one is based on the nudity of the area. There are two types again. Primary succession and secondary succession. So primary succession, some points you need to learn about primary succession. So primary succession means that is in a that starts in a barren area. That means that don't have any vegetation or any type. There is no living organism in that area. First, it is in a bare area. Okay, there is no vegetation in that area. So that's the first point. Then the places like volcanic lava, that cooled lava, then some igneous rock, then newly exposed sea. So such habitats, their primary succession is starting. Where this one we are saying about first point, then second point is cold lava, like examples we are saying, then newly exposed sea areas, in such places and all, means there is no vegetation in the previous time. Okay, so like that area, their vegetation is starting. newly. So in this area, you know that it is first time some vegetation is appearing there. So what will happen there? There it will be difficult, right? So for the pioneer community, it is difficult to establish. So for the pioneer community, it will be very difficult to establish there, not like the other one. So other communities like next communities and like climax community or transitional community and all, that will be very easy because there already pioneer community is established with the existing situations. So very difficult for pioneer community to get established in this area. Then as usual, when one community is getting established, it will take long time, or it may take many years to produce a good soil, or to reach the climax condition, it may take so much time. Okay. Okay. So what and all we can say? Primary succession means this starts in a place where there is no vegetation. So it is first in a bare area. It is going to start from the first. Then examples we can say exposed sea area or cooled lava and all. In that there is nothing. A new organism should start there from the very beginning. They need to start. So in this condition, for pioneer community or the starting community, it is very difficult to get established, right? Then this procedure to reach the climax community, it will take so much time. Succession. What do you mean by secondary succession? Let's see. What do you mean by secondary succession? Here in secondary succession, we can say that here some organisms will be existing. Some organisms, or in that area, they lost some with some particular reason, due to some particular reason, they lost organism there, and there all conditions are there for that organisms for existing in that area. Conditions or environmental conditions are good. Okay, so the organism can exist there. So in such condition, due to some particular reason, they lost all organisms. That's like some farmland where these organisms, some burned farmland, or they burned forest or something like that, or cut forest, or due to flood and all, everything got destroyed. So something like that, their organisms were there, but due to some reason like flood, burning of forest, something like that, they lost all organism, but their environmental conditions are good for the existence of organism. Okay. Then here we said pioneer community, it is difficult to start, but here at the same time, here in the secondary succession, that it will be easy for the pioneer community to start. So these, you can compare both primary succession and secondary succession. Here in a bare area, there is no vegetation. Here in secondary succession, due to some particular reasons, the existed organisms got vanished. Then here we can say like cooled lava, exposed sea area and all in primary succession. Here due to flood or burning something, they lost the vegetation or the organisms which were present there. But their conditions are okay for start their life or to exist or to establish the pioneer community, it will take less time or it is more easy compared to the primary succession. Then there you can see here it is a time consuming process to make good and fertile soil and all, but here at the same time here in secondary succession there already vegetation was there, so their soil sediments are present, so succession is faster compared to the primary succession. The secondary succession is faster and that can establish quickly. Okay, so that is the difference between primary succession and secondary succession. Next is the process of succession. Process of succession we can see here. First is nudation. What do you mean by nudation? That is an area is getting exposed. That is called as nudation. Okay, exposure of an area. Exposure of an area. So that is the first step. First we need a place or an area or a habitat. Right. Next is migration. What is that? Migration means dispersal of, here not like migrating organisms are migrating from one place to another place, not like that. Here the seed dispersal or the process of that dispersal of seeds or spores or some propagating species in a bare area, that is called as migration. Migration like process of seed dispersal or some kind of propagation of species. Somehow they need a material to start the vegetation. So for that, the basic material like seeds, that kind of dispersal of such materials, that is called as migration. Next is germination. So already seeds and all they got, or the spore, whatever it may be, that got. Next is when favorable condition comes, these spores or the seeds are getting germinated. Germination, when it will occur? Favorable condition comes, germination occurs. Okay. Next is successful germination. Okay. Germination will happen in that successful germination. So in these major steps in the process of succession, all these are MCQs. So you will get related to this MCQs, like all these definitions you should learn. Like all these are single sentence definition. You have to learn or you have to know what that term is indicating. So nudation, that procedure or that process or that step of succession is called as, you'll get 4 options. Exposure of an area in succession, that is called as, you will get colonization and aggregation, invasion, reaction, stabilization, nudation and all. So you should select the correct option. So all these word meanings, you should have an idea about all these things. Next is colonization and aggregation. So successful germination happened. So after that, if that individuals of a species that is increasing their number, how they are increasing? As a result of reproduction, colonization. One here germinated, one plant or one seed germinated, from that it is making colony or it is reproducing. Plant means in their way, or other organism means in their way it is getting established or it is making colonies, and aggregation, that is called as colonization and aggregation. So increase in number of organism, that is called as colonization and aggregation. Next is competition and co-action. Competition and co-action. So here in a habitat, limited resources are available, right? So here when a species, it is colonizing and it is aggregating, their colonization and aggregation, as a result of that, increase in number of organism will happen. There will be an increase in the number of organism. So but the resources are limited in that place, resources are limited, but the number of organism is increasing. So there definitely there will be a competition for the resources, right? So for that resources they will compete each other. There will be interspecific competition and intraspecific competition. So there will be interspecific competition and intraspecific competition. So as a result of this competition, there will be elimination of weaker plants. Okay. So competition and coaction, interspecific and intraspecific competition. So due to these competition, there will be elimination of organism, elimination of organism or elimination of plants due to competition. Next is invasion. What is that? Invasion. See, due to elimination, there will be some gap or some plants, they will leave that space. So in that space, some other type, various other type of plants, they'll try to establish in that gap or the space which is left by the previous plants due to competition and elimination. See, other type of plants, they will try to occupy the space which is left by the plants which are eliminated through competition and coaction. Next is reaction. What is that? What is reaction? Reaction means here new plants are trying to occupy that space, right? So reaction, what is that? Reaction means when these plants or when the newly arrived plants, they are interrupting the existing ones. So because of that, there will be a reaction. Okay, that environment that will modify and that will become unsuitable for the existing community. Okay, so as a result of that, it will be replaced by another community. As a result of competition, some organism, they'll leave the place, or some plants, they may get eliminated. So in the same place, in the next process invasion, other type of plants will try to occupy that space. Okay, so when other type of plants are occupying that space, there will be a competition or there will be a problem in between these communities, and as a result of that, that community will be replaced by the newly found one, and there will be some kind of changes or reactions when the new community is getting established, right? So due to that, or due to that unsuitable changes, that existing community that will be replaced by some other community or by some other plant species. That is called as reaction. Then stabilization. What is that? What do you mean by stabilization? Stabilization means finally one community will appear after all this process, right? Now, as a result of reaction, one new community got established. So that community, final climax community, final community or final climax community that will become stable for a longer period. Okay, that will become stable. That climax community will become stable because that will be in an equilibrium with the environment and along with the climate and the environmental condition, that will be able to adjust and go. So there will be the establishment of a climax community and that can survive for a longer period. So compared to the transitional community or pioneer community, that climax community that is having larger size of individuals, just like we said about forest, that is already established. So the individuals that will be having larger sizes, then their organization will be complex, then there will be food chain, food web, everything in that, and there will be energy utilization in an efficient way. Okay, so that is stabilization. Finally, climax community will appear that will become stable. Then their individuals will be having larger size, then complex organization, then there will be food chain, food web and all. Then there will be efficient use of energy. Got it? Next is during succession, during ecological succession, there will be changes. There will be changes in the characters or in the characteristics during the ecological succession. Changes in characteristic during ecological succession. So what and all changes you can see during ecological succession? What characteristic changes will be there? What and all there? Increase in total biomass, that we said finally climax community will come. So in each stage, from pioneer community to transitional community, and finally to climax community. When it is moving from the pioneer to transitional, then to climax, wherever you can check, everywhere you can see the changes or increase in biomass. There will be an increase in biomass. Then diversity. When it is moving from pioneer community to climax community, you can see maximum diversity. Okay, different types of organism or different types of community or different species of organism you can see. Then increase in humus content of soil. That is another point. Increase in humus content of soil. Then aquatic or dry condition to basic condition. Then vegetational changes that affects food and shelter of different animals. Okay, this vegetational changes when pioneer to transitional, then to climax, all these communities are coming, or it is moving from pioneer to climax. So there is a vegetational change. That vegetational change is affecting the food. See, particular organism will be having specific food habit, and they'll be having particular shelter also. So when these vegetational changes, it is changing means that is affecting the food as well as the shelter of different animals. Then change in diversity species. Species diversity also will change. Okay. So the species, when it is changing, that diversity also changes. Different species are appearing means there will be a diversity in the species also. So what are all the characteristics during ecological succession? Increase in total biomass, then diversity, then increase in humus content of soil, then aquatic or dry condition to basic condition, then vegetational changes affect food and shelter of different animals, then change in diversity of species. These are the things in an ecosystem. There is change in the characteristic during the succession. You can see all these things. Okay, next is succession of plants. That is a in that topic you have to learn a lot because it is important for the NEET exam also. There you can learn the xeric succession and hierarch succession in detail. So that we will learn in the next class, because that topic you can't finish within this time. So we'll learn that in next class. So hope up to this everything is clear. You have any doubt? Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So go through these portions. If you have any doubt, you can ask me in the next class. Thank you.
Thank you.